scorecard player, get up, stack bands. Time to get up, then slap your hands. Chilling in the club with all my friends. Living in the moment, hope it's never gonna end. Love a new beginner, but I stick to the end. I listen to the beat, I hope to ascend. I hope to cherish, and I hope to win.
What's up, everyone? Tyler here, tuning in for another Worthwhile Spotlight. And today we got Gray Mitchell.
Hey.
Bro, how's it going?
Pleasure to be here, bro.
Bro, it's awesome. Thank
It's
you.
great.
And Dom behind the camera over here.
Yeah.
Making it happen.
We made it happen.
Yeah, bro. So
yeah, got here.
it's the goal of the Spotlight is to spotlight people and kind of talk about journeys through life, kind of what makes you who you are, and trials, tribulations, and obviously we want to kind of make it conversational. So
Yeah.
tell me about yourself, bro.
Well, that's a deep question, isn't it?
Start off with
the
it.
big
Just,
one.
give me a brief journey, and then we'll dive in and
All right.
pick out stuff.
The highlighted journey is that when I was 15, I started my first drop shipping store and got into entrepreneurship. And then from there, I started an e-commerce agency. And then long story short, I ended up booking appointments for other agency owners and B2B service providers to lead to where I am now, which is a full encompassing email marketing agency.
Nice.
So that's the high level version. If you want me to go into the deep, like nitty gritty.
Talk about the progress to, you said at 15 you started the drop shipping company, right?
Yeah, at 15.
What led to wanting to start that and then that process?
To be honest, I was really just scrolling on TikTok one day, and I came across like Andrew Tate videos, and I started getting those. I was like, who is this guy? So some of his takes are kind of funny, but some of them are kind of stupid. And then I started getting like drop shipping and like business stuff on my page as a result of that. And I remember I saw like a drop shipping ad one day, and I basically clicked on it. It was like a funnel to buy a course. It was organic videos, so it was like videos that they make with like those hustler type clips, and then ultimately leads to a big funnel, which was one of like the largest business courses at the time. And I kind of got involved with that community and got to know a bunch of the guys, which is ironic because I know some of them now in real life.
That's cool.
But yeah, it was pretty big, and obviously that at that point I started the dropshipping store, and I started going, okay, how can I do this to get views organically on TikTok the same way they're doing it? So my strategy was literally just to post on TikTok a bunch. I would post, at first I posted 3 times a day. Then I switched to like 2 times a day, and then 1 time a day for basically a month. And that's how I got millions of views using organic. And I do the same strategy for affiliate and for everything else.
Nice.
That's essentially how it started.
Did you have any trials or tribulations
course.
in the beginning? What he said, of course.
Of course, trials and tribulations. That's the whole journey, right? Is you're
Should
built in the struggle.
rename the podcast to Trials and Tribulations.
Trials and tribulations. I like it. I mean, ultimately, I think people are built in the struggle, right? When life is going perfectly and you're not really having to do that much and you're just kind of cruising, like you're not learning. And you could learn knowledge, but you're not learning through experience. And experience, it's not just about having knowledge and acquiring knowledge. It's about acquiring experience, and experience is a huge part of knowledge. And knowledge is only useful if you actually take it to heart and do something with the knowledge. Yeah. And experience is the best form because you know what that was like before, and you know what to do and what not to do the next time. And so I think that absolutely experience was the biggest lesson that I learned, and the trials and tribulations I faced throughout, which was like I had one client, a big client who never, like people who never paid me, people who would like not take me seriously because of my age, people who would give me opportunities, and really just I mean, like Dominic and I were talking on the last podcast about how people, when you're younger, won't take you as seriously, and they'll try to like penny pinch you and like get things out of you, and it's like a real thing. I mean, obviously, it's not like it's so hard.
True,
like
yeah.
it's just people do that because they think, oh, well, he's just some young guy. I can basically just use him for his time and then get what I need to get done and then get rid of. So
my friend Chase had he's in real estate and got into real estate right after high school, and 18 years old, like young real estate agent,
yeah,
braces, the whole 9 yards, and he battled with that a lot, just because in real estate you're expecting someone 30 years old plus and has experience showing houses and seeing houses.
You want some like ripped dude in a suit pulls up in the Porsche or whatever. I can close this house for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
That's
the same thing, same what you're saying.
Yeah.
Keep going though.
Yeah, well, just things like that. Number of like started this failed, and just getting the failure reps in. And so ultimately, the way it kind of worked is like you start, you get a little win. You fail, you get a bigger win. And then that keeps kind of snowballing until you get more successes. And obviously there's always still more failures than successes. Like out of everything you do, at least half of them are gonna fail. Like you try a new idea, you test something new, you run a new campaign, you close a new client. It's not guaranteed that you're gonna get the results, but over time you get better and better and better at doing that until you become more confident that you can perform and do what you say that you claim you can do.
And every one of those failures is just adding to the experience.
Of course, yeah.
So
and it adds to the story.
Yeah.
So
which is the most valuable, I think.
Yeah.
The story, everyone's stories are. It's one thing I always say with Worthwhile is that like we all have a story, but we choose how we tell it.
Of course.
And like what I would kind of mean by that on like a deeper level is that your perspective. Like you can look at a failure and let that define you and be like, oh, well, this failed and this is my story. It all failed and this is all compounded. Or you could be like, this happened for me to learn to next step and apply.
Right. Like think about the stories that are most inspiring. And it's like I lost everything, I went bankrupt, and then they made it back, right? That's like some of the most inspiring stories. And so it's like the lower you go,
I mean, for real, yeah.
You don't have anywhere to go at the bottom, only up. So, yeah.
Nice.
But anyways, so I guess give me a quick rundown of like the highlight version of your story, because I'm curious too. You've told me, I think, maybe a time or two, but it's a long one. So I guess just give me like how'd you start Worthwhile? How'd you start this whole movement?
So Worthwhile started with me and my two best friends at the time, which I'm still great friends with them, but Benji Collins and Spencer Kessel, and it stemmed from, I guess, I read the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, which everyone in this realm knows about that book.
Yeah.
And it changed my perspective to realize that I was like, man, I could grow something like while I work. At the time, I was working at Kroger. I was a front-end supervisor, and that's all I knew. That's the only job I had. Parents never really pushed to go to school or do this or do that. It was like, do whatever you want, but do good at what you do. So reading that, I remember specifically is the paragraphs about the rat race. Yeah. And just talking about just the cycle that everyone goes through and not realizing it. And I was just like, whoa, like what is this? Like this is I've never even realized this. But then I looked at like older people around me in my life, an older family, and I was like, man, they've done this rat race life. Yeah. So I knew I wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was. I did a lot of deep thinking at the time frame of just like, whoa, like what would I want to do if I could do something, or like what would I grow? And this may sound like conceited in a way, but like no matter what I was doing at that time frame, and like still to this day, like whatever I put my mind to, I'm gonna crush it.
Achieve.
I'm gonna become great.
I don't think that's egotistical.
Well, at the time I was like, well, like man, like is this egotistical to think that I could do anything? And then,
really, yeah.
But it was like small things that, for example, like Kroger, I was a bagger when I started, but I was the best bagger. Mm-hmm. And then we went to a bagging competition. I was a cashier. I was the best cashier. And then I was a floor supervisor when I was 17. And I was like, okay, so whatever I'm focused on, I could do great at.
Right. It's just you gotta have that focus.
Exactly.
I would going into that like arrogance or egotistical conversation. I think obviously ego is the enemy, and arrogance is not a trait that's admirable and you don't want. But I don't think there's wrong people. A lot of people try to cast judgment on people who say, oh, I can achieve X, Y, or Z, or people who are very confident. And there's one of my principles is extraordinarily confident, yet remarkably humble. And I think there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. 100%. I think confidence is belief in yourself. Arrogance is belief about superiority compared to others. 100%. It's like, I'm better than that person.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm better than anyone. I just know that I can achieve whatever I want. And so whenever I have like, it's interesting, we were at dinner last night at Ransom's in Columbia, and we were talking, and we had all kind of had a similar experience where either friends had basically talked down to us for having different ambitions, different goals, and different beliefs, or like trying to see a bigger picture or going after something that's bigger. Or like people at school, like for me, people at school, I didn't even realize this. There were people who were actively like talking bad about me to other people behind my back, and like, oh, Gray thinks he's like the shit or whatever, but he's not going anywhere. Yeah. That kind of stuff. And then like with Jack, where he's just like, people are like, oh, you're weird for doing all these things. And so it's real that you almost have to when you have true confidence, you're not required to have external validation. You have everything you need internally.
100%.
Internal validation. You validate yourself. Who does God say I am, and who do I say I am? So
I think there's something important to highlight on that is that the people that are most affected by others' self-confidence is because I like to view everything as like in terms of like literally like light and dark. So
Yeah.
like if your self-confidence is high, your light is bright. And
Right.
if your light is bright and someone else's is low, it's going to shine light on the parts of them that they
So
are
deep.
seeing that they're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this, and they may not even realize it, but
Mhm.
just because of the way you carry yourself, it makes them realize, well, man, like that's not,
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk shit because it makes me feel not worth it, if that makes sense.
Right.
Or like, but you have the same power. They have the same exact
Exactly.
opportunity. We all have the same opportunity when we wake up, and it's a matter of what you do with that time.
Dude, I was having such a good conversation with one of my buddies like a few nights ago. We were just sitting there and we were just talking like stuff like this, and he brought up the fact, he was like, "Great, it's not about the in-year goal or the 10K per month in this specific category or whatever these goals are. It's about waking up every day with gratitude, stewarding what you have, and seeing the vision for the future. You don't have to go, I need to be here by this time or I'm a failure." Because I used to do that. I'm still
yeah.
guilty of it, where I'm like, I need to have these things done at a certain point in time, which I think to a certain extent is healthy, but it's not your timing, it's God's timing. And so God's going to give you what you can steward every day. And so if you steward that well and you thank him for that consistently, like genuinely, and God, like to whom much is given, much is expected. And then like basically to those who steward what God has given them, more will be given to them. So,
100%. Yeah. I'm gonna dive back into the
Yeah, of
storyline.
course.
So like I was battling with this, like what do I want to do, and then I was like, man, if I could be the best me I can be, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then we had a friend at the time frame, Harlan Groves. Shout out Harlan. Looking at the wrong camera. He's definitely one of my big inspirations. Like I feel like he's like 2 years ahead of me in everything that he's done,
Yeah.
as far as like even like self-reflection and then his journey towards God and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Building a brand. He turned his brand into a nonprofit. Like I started a nonprofit. Like it's cool to see the similarities, but his brand is called Modern Hippie, and there's if you hear the words modern hippie, you're gonna associate that with the partying lifestyle and
Yeah.
drugs and so on and so forth. And it was like, well, if he can start a brand, like why can't we? And that sparked the conversation. I'm gonna highlight this point because it's very important. But we were on a trip to Holiday World, and on this trip, I'm fired up. You know, I just read this book. I'm like, I want to do something. I don't know what I want to do. Like we can do something. Like
Right.
almost like shaking a wall. Like we
Right.
can do something. Like what can we do? And in the car ride, we'd like spit a couple different ideas around about brand names, and then it faded away. And it was like a week later, like nothing else was thought about it. I go to my friend Benji's house, and he was like, Worthwhile, and had a logo, and it was like, that's it. Like
Yeah.
just seeing it, it was like that's it, and that stemmed from his growing up. I mean, he grew up overweight and had psoriasis kind of all over his body.
Yeah.
So like, there's of course during school, like there's people that didn't talk to him or like so on and so forth, and I never seen any of that. And he said that our friendship and that friendship group really brought that self-worth out of him. So that's where the name Worthwhile like stemmed from.
Right.
But when I seen Worthwhile for me, it was like, that's it. We started the whole process, started getting shirts, and then it was like, well, what's worthwhile to me? What makes me worthwhile? Like, how
Right.
can I grow a brand that's telling people to be worthwhile and be themselves if I don't know what that means for myself? And that sparked the internal journey that I feel like is never ending of just reading those types of mindset books and trying to figure out what makes us who we are as individuals. The brain, how's the brain work? How's our thoughts come?
Right.
Like how habits and stuff form? Like what controls us? There's subconscious, conscious. Like it's a deep
Right.
hole that I
The
feel
fullest
like
pursuit
I'm
of your potential.
100%.
Yeah.
And from that, it's just been, so the brand's 9 years old in July, and just imagine, so like 9 years, I've never really, of course in the beginning it was like, we're going to grow a multi-million-dollar brand, and like this year we're going to sell, you know, like that's
Yeah.
what it started as, but I realized over time that it was something that was going to slowly develop.
Right.
And it was just handing cards out and spreading that message word of mouth, grassroots style. So over the 9 years, it's been, I mean, I started serving at Olive Garden, and I want to talk about the jobs too, because I feel like there is a negative perception on, okay, like if I'm working somewhere, that I'm not doing something for myself.
Right.
You know, so serving, I left Kroger, and because I just pulled the plug on it. I was actually going to Columbia State at the time frame too. I was trying to get my business degree so that I can be a manager at Kroger. That was my route I was
your
taking.
game plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And through the start of the brand, and like I was still going to classes, and I started reading my own social media marketing books, and I was Gary Vee was huge at the time
Yeah,
frame,
of course.
and that's what introduced me to like jab, jab, right hook, and all this stuff. And I was going to school, and my business class, they were talking about social media marketing. And I just read some of the exact same stuff that we were going over in school 2 days before through my personal reading. And I was like, wait a minute, like I can do this myself
Yeah.
and learn, and the knowledge is there. Like I'm reading something that they're teaching me. I'm pretty much wasting my time here. So long story short, I ended up deciding to drop out and go all in and working and making money and growing the brand and just trusting in myself. And ironically, I can get to that point, but I ended up getting invited back to Columbia State, and I spoke at their leadership summit about the brand and got paid for it. And I was like, all right, this is cool. Like this is happening. But so starting at Olive Garden, I wanted to be in the serving industry because you're flipping the table, literally. So I'm at Kroger, people coming to you. Hey, where's this at? I'm ready to cash out. Like I have an issue with this. And flipping it, I'm approaching the table. I'm asking them what they want and helping them building those relationships. But every single table I've ever talked to and served, every single day, I've always had Worthwhile cards on me. So you think about 7+ years
So that's how you grew
of just having cards
Yeah.
on me. And people always ask, like, so what do you do outside of here? And it was like, well, I have this brand. It's all about spreading the message of Worthwhile. And like for years, like just handing cards out and providing great service. I had a manager at that time frame that was like, your section is your business. When someone comes and sits in your section, you're creating that experience for them.
Right.
Like you are guiding their experience and building that relationship. And that stuck with me for up until now. Like it's just something that stuck with me.
Yeah.
So on top of serving, spreading the message that way, I was obviously selling clothes, and that led to so we were buying at bulk at first, which anyone that's ever going to start a brand, like, and I know there's a lot more options now as far as like drop shipping and
of course.
that type of stuff. But at the time, the process was go to a screen printing company and buy a bunch of clothes and then sell them. Mm-hmm. And I realized at this time frame that it was like we buy X amount of clothes and you expect to buy them and sell out in like a 2 days, which is possible. But this is when I realized that the brand's growing over time, not when I want it to happen, like God's timing. So that led to, instead of putting a bunch of money into a bunch of clothing and then having a bunch of stock sitting there, so I taught myself how to screen print. So I can print stuff one of one on demand. If we met somewhere and you really wanted a shirt, what's your favorite color? I buy that shirt and I'll print in your favorite ink. So then it became the individuals. So I called them individualities, play on words.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that for years. Pursued public speaking, specifically at C-State was the first like big speaking engagement.
Yeah.
That was the kind of separation of me and Benji and Spencer at the time frame as well. This was the moment that I realized too, like, and this is no shade towards them whatsoever. Like we're all on our own paths, and I still feel like that they're a part of the brand at heart. But I went and talked to Krista Martin, who is second in charge of Columbia State, and she was also the vice mayor of Columbia for a long time. And I just set a meeting up and was like, hey, I'm going to come talk about my brand, and brought a box and a shirt and told her the message, and she started crying because she just lost her grandniece due to bullying like a week and a half before.
Wow.
And she was like, you're God sent, like walking in my office right now, and like completely inspired by it. She ended up buying a shirt that day, and it's still hanging on her office door at C-State to this day. Like,
that's incredible.
Wild. So
Yeah.
she ended up inviting us to speak at the Leadership Summit, 2 30-minute speeches back to back. And it was going to be us three talking about it. It was actually my friend Connor at the time frame. He wasn't in the core start of it, but he was involved at the time. And, in my mind, I'm like, bro, this is it. Like we're getting paid to speak about the brand. Like this is it. Like, and it's 30 minutes. So I broke it up so that I would speak the most. I was going to speak for 15 minutes, and then they were going to split 15 minutes each. So 7.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we had like a month and a half to prep for this. And like, I'm writing pages and pages and pages. And like, ideas. And the point of why I brought up the driving to Holiday World is that the idea left. We talked about it in the car, and then it was gone for a week, for me, in my perception. And then it was brought back up. So that's the key, that we all have ideas, and they come and go unless you capitalize on them. We all have ideas coming.
Opportunities here for a limited amount of time.
Exactly.
Do you take the opportunity?
Exactly.
Or do you let it go to waste?
By. So leading up to this, like, you know, I'm writing everything, planning it all out, and as we're getting closer to, like, I don't know what I want to talk about, and I'm like, just talk about you. Like, what makes you worthwhile? Like, one of them was into baseball and played baseball through school. I'm like, there's leadership in baseball. Like, what's baseball? What's that to you? Like, what makes that important to you? And
Yeah.
getting towards the speech time frame, they didn't have anything and ended up not wanting to do it. And so I did both 30-minute speeches back to back by myself, and nobody was there. Like, nobody showed up out for worthwhile. So, like, it was just the kids I was talking to, and I was by myself. And that was the moment that I was like, if I don't do this, it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And like I said, from that point on, it was just pop-up shops, speaking engagements, spreading the message in different ways, and just shaking hands, building personal relationships, like how we met. Like, anybody that I know in town and that knows the brand has been because of a handshake and actually talked to them and got to know their story.
Of course.
And you multiply that by 9 years, and then
you get a lot of you get a big movement at that point.
And it's nothing yet, in my opinion. Like, I think it's big in Columbia, but I want to change the world. I want
but
to
you go to
reach
Nashville,
everybody.
and it's like you want everyone to know.
I want everybody.
Right. And you want to go to other cities and have people go.
The world.
Dude, I'm so inspired by that message.
The world.
Yeah. It's a big movement.
But after this, we'll kind of dive into something else. But with the journey, I spilled coffee on myself. Speaking of, like, timing, it's like every year I'm like, this is the year. This is the year. This is the year. And now that right now in this present moment, I'm like, I see it. I see it all unfolding. And I think that everything's been God's timing, and not only bringing me to understand what God is to me, but also understanding myself, understanding the brand, understanding people, understanding everything now, so that I know that this knowledge I've learned for 9 years is inside of me. And, like, we could talk for hours about it, but I think it's all in timing, and, like, it's unfolding.
Of course.
I like it.
Yeah, time. It's like the right combination of just the drive to make it happen.
Yeah,
it's like you can't just go like, oh, it's God's timing, I'm just gonna, like, sit on my couch. It's like number one, have the drive to do it, and then take action. And number two is just trust it's not in your own timing. And then you do those two things, and, like, blessings, dude. Just
and the trust right there is an element that I've recently come to. Over the past 2.5 years, really came to understand is the faith. So what we're talking about is faith, and, like, that could be faith in a religion or a belief, or faith in yourself, or faith in the timing. It's there, but faith is one of the hardest things to do because you want to have control. You want to, and
that's what people have. I told you about lowercase t truth and upper. Yeah. Okay. So there's lowercase t truth and there's capital T truth, and lowercase t truth is like. This is the way I've broken it up in my head. Like, Big Bang, like, simulation. Basically, the whole point is, like, nothing really matters. We just kind of spawned in here, like it's some video game, and we're just kind of here. But, like, there's no really point to it. You can kind of just do whatever you want. Yeah. But that doesn't take, like, accountability is the problem. It's like the ocean, right? The ocean's deep, very deep. But it doesn't take, it's like looking at the ocean and going, oh, that's just like the surface. But it's like, no, it goes so much deeper than that. Yeah. The ocean's thousands of feet deep. It's like looking at that going, oh, it's just a few feet. Yeah. Yeah, so it's...
And you're saying that in, like, the comparison to life itself?
Right, in the comparison to capital T truth, which is like, if there's a design, there has to be a designer. Like, bro, literally look around and, like, tell me, oh, yeah, we just spawned in here. Yeah. Like, it's... Bro, it's crazy. It sounds crazy.
Yeah, that gets into, like, the sacred geometry, and everything comes down to mathematics, and it's all designed. Like,
right. It's like those who have eyes to see will see, bro. Like,
you could drop the mic right there.
Yeah,
just take this off.
You have like, you have eyes to see. Like, seriously though, it's like, because it's like, how do people not see it? Like, you and I can look out there and go, oh, there's a design. There has to be a designer. Yeah. But it's like, how can people just look out this window and go, oh, we're probably just here. We just spawned in here. It's just cause. But it's not taking full accountability of the situation. It takes responsibility off of yourself, because it kind of just gives you the excuse of, like, oh, I can do whatever. But in reality, it's way better to have that capital T truth, even though that means you have to figure out all this depth.
Yeah.
So,
Which the depth is the
that's the
trials
fun.
and tribulations and stuff that we were talking about in the beginning. Like that's how you get to the depth.
Right.
Like I know there's a rise of anxiety and depression in this day and age, and like I like to say that life is literally like, I mean, everything comes down to frequencies, vibrations, and like the fabric of reality.
Dude,
of
we
what
were
it
just
is.
literally talking about this. It's
Bro,
like some people are just on the same wavelength, and
Yeah.
people will call you crazy, whether that's spiritual energy, like whether that's just like what God has provided with us, whether that's like literally scientific. There is some sort of energy that you feel.
People like to say that, so like science, it disproves religion, but I think that if you look under the surface of the ocean, it meshes together. Like
Yeah.
they go hand in hand, but it takes that perspective to
Right.
see, okay, this stems from that.
Right.
And yeah, it gets deep.
It does get deep. And if you're thinking about struggle, it's like I think the reason people haven't had to struggle enough. If you think about the reason, think about I'm reading this book called Wild at Heart. It's a very good book. It's basically written about how men, two of the key factors are men need a battle and they need adventure. And it's like ingrained in us. Like that's the way God designed us. Like we have to have these things in order to help fulfill our purpose. It's like the way we were designed. And so like scrolling on TikTok like this isn't a battle. And so men don't have a battle anymore. And so consequently they feel depressed because there's no struggle, which is ironic because you think like, oh, all this struggle, like, are you okay? Are you depressed? You need something? But it's like, no, it's entirely a mind game. It's like you need the struggle to help lift you up.
If you think about like, if you just turn the time dial back and talk about just the battle, for instance, the battle back in the, let's say like the Roman Empire time frame or any time pre our timeline, there was battles happening. There is wars happening now, but like that's how like you fought for land and conquering, and like there was miniature wars and big wars happening all the time, and there was more battle happening in this reality. And I think that the biggest battle of them all is literally
The battle of the
here.
mind.
Yeah, like
This is the most important tool you have. This is your super, like, more dangerous than a weapon, more dangerous. Like, this is the most powerful. This is why the enemy wants to destroy this so much.
Yeah.
Because if you can destroy this and get into here, it's over. It's like a,
yeah, exactly. What was your because like what you're saying is really deep stuff, and I feel like that more and more people are starting to understand that. But what was your route on starting to understand that? Was it consuming certain videos or reading, or is there something specific that comes to mind? Or
Yeah, to be honest, I've always I know a lot of people talk a lot of crap about school, but in all honesty, I think that I go to a private classical school, and so it teaches classical principles. Like it teaches these things, and I wouldn't say there's definitely aspects of it that are more modernized, but in general, they do teach some really solid principles. And so I think laying the foundations properly has helped me. So I do have to give credit to school, where most people would say, oh, school is useless, you don't need that. I think that's true for a lot of schools, like with public school. There's a lot of issues with certain schools, but
it's an issue of what's being taught.
right. And I'm not saying this is perfect, right? Like the school I go to, like there's still things that I'm like, okay, I don't really see any value in this, but there's fundamental principles being laid down, and so ultimately it's like that, a combination of I think my dad giving me a lot of wisdom, but I guess a lot of these ideas didn't always come from that. So I think part of it's like God inspired. So like talking about more recently, God inspired, watching a lot of podcasts about like Alex Hormozy, Luke Belmar, Jordan Peterson, like those guys, they just think about the world in a new way. And not to say I agree with everything they say, but those people impart a lot of wisdom. Do we want to stop? They won't pick it up. Okay. All right. But anyways, those people impart a lot of wisdom. And so I think, and then just talking to a lot of people, just a lot of conversations and study, and it's like seek and you'll find.
Yeah. And
So-
that's in the text itself. Right
In
there.
the text, dude. In the text. People miss it's crazy. People will go, I meet these super successful people, millions and millions of dollars, and they understand lowercase t truth, but they don't understand capital T truth.
Why do you think that is?
Roots. Roots, and there's times to be. It's so deep, dude. You're opening up like one of the.
Let's go deep.
Let's go deep. Let's go deep. Yeah, man. You gotta have. Sometimes God uses people in a certain way, and then they can later be inspired by or realize the truth later. Like someone goes to them. So I just do my best to help get them closer to there. Like I encourage them. Like I was having a conversation. I'm not gonna say his name, but he had, I think, like 30 clients. He's doing very well for himself. Like engaged, lives in Miami. Like he's doing like financially, materially, is doing extremely well.
It's the key word,
Materially, right? And I think he had like a great heart. I think the heart's the most important thing. Like he had a great heart, and so like I could see that. Like you could tell. Like when you talk to somebody, you're like, oh, that person. Like they may have malicious intent.
Yeah.
But like I can also look at people and go, oh, they have a great heart. I wish they knew about X truth.
Yeah.
So it's really just getting down that fundamental. So it's like he may have had his principles, but if the principles weren't built on the rock, then it doesn't matter. So.
Bro, you just tied that together like beautifully.
I appreciate it, bro.
No, 100%. I mean, it's factual, but I think that also. I think one thing that I always try to understand, especially with growing the brand, is like, because it is to provoke self-reflection. And I had a guy one time. It's kind of getting off topic, but it kind of will loop her back around. But there's a family friend's son. And he was getting into learning about the drop shipping side of stuff and just marketing online.
Yeah.
And he had reached out and was like he's expressing interest in helping grow the brand in that way. And that's something that I haven't really ever dabbled in, is marketing the brand. Like I've done it here and there and here,
Right.
but I just prefer shaking hands and meeting people.
Yeah,
but,
there's nothing that beats like selling it. Not in like the oh, I'm gonna sell you
Yeah,
my
it's-
thing,
yeah.
but just in terms of meeting people, establishing relationships, and spreading a message. I love that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so he was like, I really want to help, but I feel like I can't because I feel like that it is discrediting my God. And I was like, what do you mean by that? Like no one's ever said that. And this was like 2.5, 3 years ago. And so we met and we were talking and he was explaining his perception. He was like, and you're saying that you are worth it versus God is worth it. And I was like, I mean, I've never really thought about that, and that made me ponder a lot. And at the time, one of my big messages was just be you, or like spreading that message of be you. But that never provides the want or need to be the best you that you can be. Because if you're just telling everybody to be themselves, then
Yeah.
Johnny down the street that does drugs and beats his wife, like if I'm just
Hey,
saying
I'm just
be
me,
you,
man. I'm just me.
yeah, then there's no room for
Yeah.
growth into being the best you that you can be.
Of course.
And that's where, like, I'm not wearing the shirt right now.
Yeah.
But you've seen it. You have one, like the reverse print shirts. Like,
Yeah.
that is supposed to start the internal journey to look
Right.
within. And it sounds like you're saying it's all about you. You look inside, you are worth it. But at the
Right.
end of the day, it's to realize if you look inside, you'll start to see the beauty and uniqueness of yourself, of your journey, that nobody
Right.
else has your journey. And then you start to realize that I didn't make myself. Like going back to a creator, the more you can see the divinity within, the spirit within you, your heart,
Yeah.
the more it does reflect God. We're all made in God's image, so it's a reflection. So
Dude.
it's the self-reflection to
So
realize that, and it's,
Yeah, man. I would say that's so good. It's like you're not worthwhile because it's just you and yourself are worthwhile. You're worthwhile because God says you're worthwhile. So
But do you believe that or do you not believe it? That choice is
the
up to
belief.
you.
We were talking about belief the other night. Oh man, we're getting into some gold. Belief is one of the deepest things. I was going back to one of my friends. I was sitting up at his apartment. So my goal is like after I have these like the vision where I'm like, all right, after high school, like I'm on track and I just gotta like. That's why I was pushing the 10K in D2C revenue consistently only because I'm like, okay, consistent. I figured this out. I was like, oh well, I think one of my core the core places I'm trying to go right now is move out, like start the agency on my own, build it, like basically get out of high school and get out of kind of the suburbs. My goal is to move to Nashville Yards where they're building all the business development over like in downtown. And I was sitting up there at his apartment, like across from it, like a high-rise apartment, and we're sitting up on this like open patio roof. And like I could see the vision, and I was like, dude, sometimes I just feel like in an XYZ scarcity mindset around me, like what if, those kind of things. And he was like, Gray, your feelings are irrelevant. Like they're 100% irrelevant. What do you believe? Do you believe that you have a scarcity mindset around you? Well then, okay, you have a scarcity mindset around you. Do you believe that you're gonna he was like, great, you gotta unlock this like belief system. Like if you unlock this belief system, he was like, I don't want to say it. We may cut this out later. But he said this to me. This isn't bad, but I don't want to sound like this was said in any kind of arrogant way.
Yeah.
But he said, like, Gray, I would bet equity in my agency, you will be a millionaire in 3 years. And I was like, wow, that's like, and this is someone who's very well off with what he's doing. He's like 20. He's already doing extremely well for his age. And I talked to a number of like really cool people like that who give me words of wisdom. This is just like the most recent one, but like I can think of countless examples of people who've just imparted like valuable wisdom on me that just changes everything about the way I think. And I think the biggest realization that I had this week was it's not what you feel, it's what you believe. Wake up every day, be the best steward of what God has given you. Wait for God's timing, but take action like it's in your control, but knowing that it's not in your control. But just that helps you. Like if you take action with urgency, you'll make things happen.
It was a phrase that I've been using recently that kind of sums that up. I actually wrote it in my notes because I thought of it one day and I was like, that's powerful. But you are not your thoughts, but you are what you think.
Someone told me you're what you do with your thoughts.
Exactly. Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild, and that gets into the ego stuff as well. Because like if you start to step back and realize that you are not your thoughts, which it's a gray line to talk about, Gray. Saying that you are not your thoughts, then you realize that okay, this is gonna get deep. This is just my personal thought process and stuff that I not battle with, but like it's hard to express it to people because it kind of shatters their reality. But if you are not your thoughts, then I am not Tyler Steigelman. Tyler Steigelman is my ego.
Ooh.
And I'm the person behind Tyler Steigelman curating and guiding the thoughts,
right,
and receiving the thoughts and putting them to action, which is the separation of, if you want to call it, spirit and ego. Like I personally believe that we are driven off of our subconscious and your spirit and your heart, the things you can't see. But in the material world, I'm Tyler Steigelman. When I look in the mirror, I see Tyler Steigelman.
But that's not you.
It's not me.
Right.
But it's shattering to try and explain that to somebody because I'm saying you're not Gray.
It's literally the label that people identify you with. But it's also, I wouldn't say that's like a bad thing. Like God literally, like God it's not like you're gonna be in heaven. He's like, you're not Gray, you're this person now. But I mean, maybe you will. But it's like your name is still your identity, and it's part of who you've encapsulated, and that's the way you get referred to. But it's not truly deep within who you are.
I think that's where it's like your consciousness. Like you are your consciousness.
Yeah.
But your consciousness is so vast, and the consciousness never ends. Consciousness that's where eternal life comes from. It's like your consciousness, and that can get into even more and more. But I mean, my realization of this was 2018. The brand was 3 years old. I went through a breakup. I was with this girl for 3.5 years, and it was the type of relationship where it's like either we're about to get married and go down that route, or we're not going to be together. And my thought process at the time frame was like, I don't really know who I am yet. I do love this girl. She loves me, and she was wanting that validation. And I love you, like, but I don't know where I'm going to be in a month. I don't know where I'm going to be in a year. Like,
right.
That was the first time
uncertainty about,
Well, like, I felt like that if I went that route, that it would just cut off all this opportunity and ability to experience and grow and really learn who I am. And I prayed about it. That was the first time, because I never grew up going to church. My family never went to church. It was just like, there's a God, do good, you go to heaven. And I was like, of course I question everything. So I'm like, what does you mean by that?
Yeah.
But that was the first time in situation that I really just felt helpless, and I prayed about it. And I was like, do you want me to break up with her, or like, what do you want me to do? And instantly I knew that I need to break up with her. Mm-hmm. So of course I shouldn't have done it this way, but I did it through text. But that I know. But she was living in Alabama at the time frame, and I felt like that I just had to express it, and I did. And there's still all love in there, but that was the moment that just sent me down a very deep depressive time frame. And it wasn't the breakup itself, but it was the first time I realized that I was, in my mind at the time, I was making a decision based off the brand, because I'm like, I got to grow this brand. I don't have time for a relationship. I have to focus on this. So then I started thinking, well, how many decisions have I made based off of worthwhile versus what I want? And then I just started bartending at the time frame. The brand, like I said, it's 3 years old. I was popping around town all the time. Everywhere I was going, people were like, this is Tyler. And like, he's got a brand, it's called Worthwhile. It's all about being yourself. And like, internally, I was lost. I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know any of the decisions I've made in the past 5 years, 3 years. Are they my decisions, or are they brand's decisions? And then I was bartending, so I'm smiling, making people happy all the time. I'm putting a front on every time I go to a table just to make the experience. And internally, I was just distraught. And that's where I felt like that the separation of, to be able to go home and sit depressed, and to be completely honest, I was smoking weed in my bathroom, sitting there writing songs. That was my outlet. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was sitting on the bathroom floor just smoking and writing, because that was all I could think of doing at the time.
Wow.
But to go outside and work, and then go into society, and everybody have no idea that I'm experiencing this, and they think that they know me because I'm telling them to be themselves.
Right.
I could literally see the perception of people, what people think of me, and then what I'm actually experiencing. That was the first separation of my ego. I feel like the first ability to be like, okay, there's two separate things and perceptions that people are seeing right now. And I give credit to God during that time frame. That's where I started actually referencing God in my writing, and that's the first time. It's been a process since then, but yeah, that was my ego separation. Start was very that was my lowest time frame in my life, bro. That was the one time that I've ever felt like that I could end my life, and it was I haven't got to that point. I've been lower. I mean, I feel like life is waves, but that was the time frame, bro. It was low.
Well, but that's a great story.
From what we talked about in the beginning, those low times, like that set the foundation for me to then start to redefine who I thought I was.
Right.
And I feel like it's still growing. I feel like it never ends. Every day is a new day.
It's a never-ending journey. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Do you think the mics could have picked that up, or should I re-explain that? Okay, so Dom just said from behind the camera. That should be another podcast, behind the camera.
Behind the camera.
The scale of complete atheist with like nothing's real, complete simulation, to ultra religious where I shouldn't use the bathroom with the lights on because God's gonna see my privates.
Yeah, like.
But so
Orthodox Jew. I don't know.
I mean, that's but there's nothing wrong with that either. But I'm not, and anything I'm about to say is not that everyone's on their own belief and whatever. Everyone's on their own journey. But
I'm open to offending people right now. That's my statement. Anyone take this personally? No, I'm joking. Obviously,
you like everyone take it personally.
Everyone should take it personally. Everyone should take what I say, go home and get mad
and think about it
and think about it deeply. No. But in all seriousness, with respect to other people's beliefs, but it's like I think we're gonna end up coming to a really similar point. But yeah, I guess this is just like our thoughts, and people can take these thoughts with
take it as you
take it as they will. Yeah.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Or pepper, whichever one you like. You want to go first? You want me to go first? My personal journey has led me to what I believe God is, and I think that religions are all avenues to the same truth, if that makes sense.
Ooh.
So
they just don't always get it all right.
It's perception. What do you perceive God to be?
Right.
What's God to you? And I think that could be a controversial subject on as far as Christianity goes, because it's like Jesus is the only way to God, but I feel like that Jesus is a representation of self-reflection. He was very humble. He didn't write anything in the Bible. He just spoke.
I think Jesus was in my opinion, I think Jesus is the physical manifestation of how God would act. And so we use him as the example. And obviously what he did was made the whole thing possible, right? Because he died as his sacrifice. But ultimately, a lot of people go, oh, it's basically, they just think of it as Jesus in the physical, where I think it's deeper than that. It's like, how can you live like him? Or how could you, it comes down back to the heart, right? It's like, what does your heart reflect?
I got something deep to add on that. So like Jesus sacrificing himself, I think is a representation of ego death. When you realize that you are not Gray Mitchell and you're the spirit behind Gray Mitchell, the consciousness behind Gray Mitchell. When I realized I'm not Tyler, I mourned internally. During my spiritual journey of just like, what am I? Like the feeling of like losing who you think you are. And your belief of who you think you are, that's sacrificing yourself, and you then live in a different way. But I think that journey is different for everybody, and it happens in different ways.
Right. So maybe for some people, it's not the ego. Maybe it's something else. Right. Yeah. It's basically it's submitting yourself to. It's taking yourself to something beyond yourself.
Exactly.
It's taking yourself and going, how can I pursue the truth and in the ideal world, like in a Gray Mitchell who reflects God, how he would want me to live.
Exactly.
Who reflects him perfectly.
But just you even saying that is you stepping outside of yourself and viewing yourself as like, okay, how would I want to portray this?
Right. In the perfect world, how would Gray Mitchell act in accordance with God? So.
I mean, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to dive into a little bit more, but like my journey to God was exploring the science and exploring meditation, which when you say meditation, the meditation's in the Bible, but meditation's also usually thought about as a Buddhist and like Hinduistic
Right, but
practice.
meditation, there's like lots of different, like you can sit there and God's like, meditate on these things. It's like, think about.
Exactly.
But you
self-reflect.
Self-reflect, right? You can meditate where you're like you can meditate with some like weird ritualistic whatever, and then you can meditate where you're focusing on your breathing. Like I used to do that. Like it's all about, it's just about being able to step back and look at the mind and analyze things, or take a break from your thought process to allow you to stop overthinking. It's really just calming the mind, or it's trying to use the mind to achieve something specific by sitting and relaxing and just stepping back and thinking.
And that I think has been the hardest thing to do, especially this day and age, because we're going to get into, this could be a conspiracy if you want to call it that, but time doesn't exist. And like people, there's past and present. I mean, there's things that happened in the past and there's things that will happen in the future, but they don't exist unless you think about them. Like unless you think about your past, it doesn't exist. Dude, I don't know your past. I don't know anything except for what you've told me. So to me, it doesn't exist.
I think, yeah. I think something similar. I would just say this is why it's like live in the present.
That's where I was going with it.
Don't worry about the past.
And what did I say? The presence of God.
Right.
The presence of God. The presence is a gift. The gift of God. It's all happening in the present moment. But everything is taking our mind off the present moment.
Right.
You're either thinking about where I want to be in a year, or what my goal is going to be, or you're stuck on regret and depression from thinking about how things could have been different. But when we're living right here in this moment, enjoying our coffee, having a nice conversation. Got this plant here.
Got the nice plant, like sitting here doing the podcast, like enjoying it now, enjoying the present, the good, the bad, the ugly.
And that's where anything's going to happen is the present. Like you can plan for the future as much as you want, but God's timing is going to take its course. But you could plan for the future, but act in the present, and that's the goal. I think the goal is to be as present as possible. And through being present, you're able to admire the beauty in things and see God in things and see the things that are unseen unfolding.
But what's really interesting is that only through the experience of our past do we gain the insight to focus on the present.
Keyword right there, insight, looking inside. And past exists to you, and it's available for you to dive into at any time, which is what I've done through my meditations, is like, okay, let me reflect on why I am the way I am right now. It's only based off of the stuff, which gets into the beliefs. Is your belief foundation on a rock or is it unsturdy?
Right.
And then you can backtrack. It's there. It's ready for you to dive into. And you can even, that doesn't just apply to you. It applies to the past in general. We're talking like, you know, the whole thing was going on with the Roman Empire. Like, was your significant other ever think about the Roman Empire?
Oh, yeah.
Like, the amount of stuff that's built off of that time frame is crazy. So, like, the past exists for you to go in, gain insight, and then apply in the present for the future to have a different outcome.
Dude,
It's
that was said perfectly. That's
Thank you.
incredible, dude. That's great. This is gold.
All right, another
next
hot topic.
Next hot topic.
Should we look at Dom? What's
Dom's the hot topic wizard.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on CBD?
Oh, you're just trying to get to THC. That's where.
And CBD, psychedelics, and alcohol.
I think alcohol is the worst for everybody, and I think that's why it's the most legal and ready to be attained by anybody. It's literally called spirits, and you're drinking something that makes you black out and takes you away from yourself. And I don't think alcohol is beneficial. Of course, I enjoy a couple drinks here and there, but like my blackout time frames, I've learned from those.
I think
time
it's also
frames.
like what you do with the alcohol.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's like you can have a couple drinks and it can be fine, but if you're using it for drunkenness, like the Bible doesn't.
Suppression. Yeah,
right. Because all it does is remove you from yourself.
Exactly. Which is ironic because it's called spirits, and it gets.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But so alcohol, I feel like could be all of them can be detrimental depending on everything should be in moderation. You may dive into like
CBD. Tell me about that.
I am not like a scientist behind like the THC and CBD chemicals and the things that make them all the different. I support marijuana. I'm gonna go out there and say it, bro. Like I started smoking.
You might get canceled, dude. Be careful.
Cancel me, bro. At this point, I don't care what people think about me, bro. I was thinking about that on the way here, and I was like, I don't know. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing to feel.
Oh, it's amazing, dude. I wouldn't say I'm like all the way there, but I care 95% less than I cared before.
I think it's for me, it's just like realizing that like I trust and believe in the journey that's unfolded to get me to the point of where I'm at right now, and like I'm like I don't care, but like I could talk for hours about the non-coincidental things and things that have unfolded that led to this and the invisible path that's led me to where I'm at, and I'm like, I love it. But I started smoking weed my sophomore year, and
hold up. I gotta make a disclaimer before we go into this. I am not an active user of marijuana.
Fair.
I don't have an opinion. I'm not saying it's good or bad. This is Tyler Steigelman's opinion. Steigelman,
yeah.
Steigelman, right. Got it. I was calling, never mind. I've never done weed. I don't intend on, if I just intend on doing weed, it's my decision, but where I stand, my current opinion.
I'm not influenced.
So I'm in high school, so I'm like, I'm not trying to get like, great, we need to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't smoke weed. I don't have an opinion on it yet.
Fair.
I'll probably get an opinion on it one day. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it could be a tool, but it could also be detrimental. It's like moderation. I mean, I definitely went through the stoner phase throughout high school, and I was just smoking all the time and getting as high as I possibly could, and that doesn't help anything. But I think that it also can. It's
like drinking.
If it's used
Getting drunk all the
intentionally.
time.
Like I love right now to hit it one time and go work on music, or if I'm about to go work out, just a small hit and just to. I don't know. It's
almost
like
a cigar where there's just a small buzz.
Bro, it's just like anything else, but you can use it excessively or you can use it wisely, intentionally.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't have anything against it. I think I'm not trying to persuade anybody. I think everyone should try it at some point so you can have your own opinion on it. But other than that, I mean, some people it's for some people. Some people can prefer CBD over THC because you get more of a body effect and it calms. But, like, I think that it's any type of psychedelic or drug or narcotic or whatever you want to call them, they are raising or lowering your frequency as a human being. And you could use it as to like a step to experience it. Like I think weed specifically will enhance your feelings or present moment experience to a degree. But if you smoke it all the time, then it starts to suppress it.
Right.
So it's
I mean, it's all just chemicals. I mean, it's not all just chemicals. There's deeper things behind it all. But I think the biggest thing is that you can use it as a tool. And have you heard, like, a lot of entrepreneurs? I was so surprised. I'll tell you, I've met a number of people who drink CBD drinks. It's microdosed. Like, they're a lot of entrepreneurs drink these things. It's like it's like lion's mane, mushrooms, which like enhances focus. CBD, like just microdose CBD and microdose THC. And apparently it's not to get like a high effect. It just apparently is like having the mix of an energy drink and being like not ready to sleep, but just calmer.
Yeah.
So it's like if you mixed a shot of whiskey into like only one into, I don't know.
That
This
sounds
coffee.
like you're supporting drinking and not.
I'm not okay. Look, I'm just
No.
saying. There's hot topics. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No.
Yeah. So cancel me.
He's like, I am here. Take me down. I mean, like I said, it's and I've gone through times of I've stopped for months at a time, and then I've stopped and I've started again, or like I've taken breaks, and like it's at one point I would say that I was definitely probably leaning on it for a crutch, but I can go
Yeah,
without,
you can't-
and I enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
I've had times without, and I'm like, you know what? If I enjoy it and I could consume it at a moderation type, or
I
that's
think
not
it's
the term,
just
but like,
the thing people have is so easy to lead into like drug addiction that I think it's like an addictive thing, you know?
if you want to actually get deep on the hot topic stuff, so like weed became huge around, you think, the hippie area or the area or era where Vietnam War was happening and all this stuff, and there was a huge hippie movement, and I think that it started to connect people because I'm sure you've probably heard the term peace pipe. Have you ever heard that?
I actually don't know.
Okay, so smoking or a pipe is considered a peace pipe, is what some people call it, and I can't tell you how many relationships that I've built with people just be like, "Do you smoke?" And they're like, "Yeah," and you share a moment smoking with somebody.
I was
and
surprised how many people I knew who smoked,
Right.
like very successful individuals who like normally like if like you went up to like a normal person and were like, hey, like you want to smoke? They'd be like, oh no, what you like drug addict or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
But it's like I think it's it's just
It's because of like where I was growing.
been
So
normalized.
the hippie movement happened, and like all this people were. Remember, what was it all about? Peace, love, and positivity. And there was all these drugs that were hitting the market. And I'm not supporting all the drugs, but I'm just saying like the core of that was weed. Like weed was a huge thing at that time frame, and war was happening. People were starting to wake up and be like, wait, why are we over here in Vietnam when like we should be not killing people and we should be spreading love and positivity? And I believe it's
like
Reagan.
it's like let the Vietnamese handle themselves.
Well, Reagan was president at the time, and then they banned all these psychedelic drugs and weed, and then became a Schedule I drug, where it's all of a sudden extremely legal to smoke weed and have weed in your possession. Look at all this positivity and love that was happening, and then they're like, whoa, like people are starting to realize that we're doing stuff we don't need to be doing, and then let's make all this stuff illegal. Why is weed becoming legal now?
Yeah.
Like it's. I think it was a suppression tool. I think
They're slowly getting that way where it's like marijuana is becoming legal in some states.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But 5 years ago it was a Schedule I drug that you're going to get in a lot of trouble, legal trouble for. But now all of a sudden it's fine, and there's health benefits, and the people take CBD to help sleep, and all
Did you
these.
hear the Romans smoked weed?
I
Like
did not.
thousands of years ago? Yeah, they had their
wouldn't
own.
be
They would
surprised.
take like the marijuana plant. I'm not even joking. They basically, they did it differently, but they would do marijuana. So
Either way, that's
okay. Hot topic. Disclaimer: I do not smoke weed. Tyler can have whatever opinion he wants. Cancel me. I'm in high school. I'm a very good boy. I do all my schoolwork to the A+. All right.
Again, I will say disclaimer. This is my personal journey, and everybody has their own journey. And
I love
you
how
can
we have
do
to
it.
disclaim this stuff. This is crazy.
I mean,
because
yeah,
it's like people are gonna go online and just start like
I
going
mean,
crazy.
it's at the end of the day.
I'm gonna get like Gray smokes weed messages. Like parents
No.
are gonna call me and be like, "You smoke weed? Your son smokes weed?"
No, you can literally be like, go watch the video. I said I did not smoke weed. Like, I'll tell you right now, I smoke weed.
Yeah, but people
because
take
it's my
step
journey,
out of I mean, no, you're an adult, but like people like as
for
a
you.
high school student,
Yeah.
people will Yeah.
Hey, I will say you brought the hot topic up.
I did bring the hot topic up. I take accountability for that. All right. Relationships.
That relationships are supposed to, you shouldn't have to rely on anybody to make you complete.
Ooh,
You should
yeah.
be 100%
100%.
capable to live your life. Like, I've had time frames where I'm like, I'm going to die alone. And I've gotten okay with the fact that if I was alone the rest of my life,
You would
like,
be
I would
happy.
be content internally because you shouldn't have to rely on somebody else to make you whole.
Right.
And that's a lot of people search for relationships where it's like, man, I'm not going to be.
I'm not complete without
Yeah,
someone.
exactly.
It's like, it's so desperate, dude. And it's the biggest turn. Like, people who are like desperate,
I know a bunch.
You've met, yeah. I mean, like girls, guys are like, I need somebody. And it's like, oh,
you
get away
don't.
from me. Like,
Don't.
yeah, it's like, that's the kind of like energy it gives off, is like this neediness.
And that
So,
doesn't
reflect well.
If you go into a relationship thinking that this person is making you
Complete?
complete, then
When they leave you, it's the
then you're
biggest
lost
soul
again.
crushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like I'm in a relationship now. We've been together like 6 months, and like we both have said to each other and other people, like, yeah, we're enjoying this time, but like if they
goes
left me
away.
tomorrow, like I would be fine because I'm content, and I've spent a lot of time by myself. I've spent more time by myself than we spend more time with ourselves our entire life than anybody else. So like if you're not content with yourself,
Yeah,
then
that's true.
it's not going to help anything. I think that a relationship, you should be each having your own lives, and I think that you should help each other's lives. Mm-hmm. Like you shouldn't
100%.
lean on somebody completely for your entire fulfillment
sure.
of love.
Yeah, it's because then you're relying on something less than the perfect.
Yeah. Or if you're striving for perfection, you'll never reach it.
Well, you can rely on perfection, on God, but you can't.
True.
Yeah, but you can't achieve perfection on your own. At least not yet. So,
Another hot topic.
hot topic.
Education is extremely important. I think that you should always be gaining some sort of knowledge.
Oh, 100%.
The pursuit of knowledge never ends, but the education system, this modern day and age, I think is definitely not helping people perceive or pursue the fulfillment purpose of their lives. I think it's very systematic. And
You
it's
read
like,
my mind.
you need to go. I mean, you look at the school itself. I don't know how your school may be, but like they look like prisons. Like
No,
you go,
my
you go
school
to
doesn't look like that because I go to like a different kind of
Exactly,
school.
that's
But
what-
I understand public schools are like set up, and it's like a fundamental.
Get in
I'm
line.
not going to compare them to prisons just because, but it definitely doesn't give. You don't go in there and you're like, oh, what a warm, friendly vibe.
Yeah. I mean, well, single file lines to everywhere you go. You have a 35-minute lunch period. You go by bells. It's like you nowadays the security systems to get into schools, like it's I don't know. I think it's all systematic to be on a routine so that you get up at 6:30, 6:45. You're at school by 7:30, and you get out by 3:30. What does that look like? A 9-to-5 job. So you're being programmed to go into a career versus I think that schools should be more focused on individuals' passions.
This is why I in some ways I like my school a lot compared to other schools because they have teachers and it's more like that. I wouldn't say it's 100% though. They're still very rigid and like this is the way you need to go. And like you're not going to college, like kids chuckle across the class. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, like that's fine. Yeah. So it's definitely set up in a systematized way. And you also have more of the follow the rules type people in that system because it's in some ways it's way better than public school, like 1,000 times better. The things you're learning, the experience, the knowledge, like all that stuff, extremely good. The value you get is you can't describe it. But in some ways, you have the people who follow the rules the most. And so you almost have people that are like, oh, you're not going down this traditional path. And you get a lot of that judgment from teachers and students. But fortunately, I'm getting closer and closer every day to just to not caring at all about what other people think. And so
It's well said.
it's kind of irrelevant. So overall, school, good environment, good idea. Education, extremely important, but there's a difference between education and indoctrination. So
That's the term I was trying to get to. But
Yeah.
You said it right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Indoctrination is a very powerful thing that's happening.
Yeah,
It's been
I
happening.
don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, but I do think there is a lot of issues with the education system. So
I mean, imagine if there was a school that focused on each individual's passions of like what makes this person who they are. Like, not everybody's going to be great in math. Not everyone's going to be a great reader. Like, but if they focused on like something that excites this person's passion, you're creating geniuses to just fulfill either arts or expression or creating a multi-million-dollar next software program. Like, if you're focused on what they enjoy versus you have to do this, even though you're never going to do it again.
Yeah,
and
do X problems.
if you don't do it
get
good,
done.
you're going to fail.
Yeah, it's it's crazy. I can't even get it. Like, I have countless stories on school. Like, I have teachers who have made fun of me for starting a bit. I have some teachers now. I need to disclaim that I have some teachers who are extremely supportive, and like I'm so grateful for those people. They're encouraging me. Like the best and it's ironically the classes that I find more value in. So I don't know if that says anything, but there's some teachers who are just like not supportive. Like, they've made jokes. They've been like, "Oh, you were gone for business," like stuff like that, and they'd say it like that.
Yeah.
Or I had one teacher who made fun of, who was just like, "Oh, well, Gray, just like go, Gray, you can't be talking because you just go home and play on your laptop all day." Like,
You're like, what do you
and when I was
mean
starting my
by that?
dropshipping store in like 10th grade, dude. I'm like, crazy.
No, keep doing you, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're ahead of most people your age, and same with Dom, bro. I mean, how old are you? Yeah, bro. Both of y'all.
But he's crazy. He's got,
Both of
like,
y'all
a
are
whole
just
client base
like,
and
I'm
everything.
27, bro, and like I feel like I've learned a lot, and like you guys are both able to have conversations about stuff that it took me years to understand. And at your age, I mean, Worthwhile started when I was 18, so it was around that time frame. But you're pre that, and I mean, look, you're set up here, bro. Like, you guys are crushing it. So
I appreciate that,
100%,
bro.
yeah.
I appreciate it. But that, like, it's still like it's all in God's timing, and like God develops you as the inspiration and people like you as the light for younger generations. And like, obviously there's a ton of knowledge on YouTube now, and you can go and search anything up and you can have these ideas and have like listen to these conversations. But it wasn't possible without the previous generation who
100%.
went to do that stuff. So,
Laid the foundation.
yeah, got to lay the foundation. So, and
Word.
that just keeps getting more, like, I'm sure there'll be like 12-year-old crypto millionaires by the time that we're
There already is.
yeah, by the time like we're doing it, it's gonna be like, I'm 9. Yeah, I started my e-commerce company 2 years ago, and it's like, dude, what?
I came out the womb, and I got a.
I came out the womb. I had I was writing down notes, and
There's one thing my dad always said that I've always thought about for years is like, because I used to always struggle with like, I need this stuff now, I want this stuff now, but he said, babies don't come out of the womb running.
it's true.
You gotta grow.
Gotta grow.
Grow with the flow.
Grow with the flow.
Well, I think that concludes it, bro. Do you want to plug in information where that people can find you at? If you want people to find you?
Yeah. Depends who.
Yeah.
Jay Gray Mitchell on Instagram. I mean, I'm sure these clips are going to get uploaded. Number one, the whole thing is going to be on my YouTube, but it's going to get uploaded to Instagram too. And then I guess if you want to plug your stuff, because I guess we'll edit it like it's just a spotlight podcast. You can just tell Dominic how you want it, and then we'll send it to you, and we'll send them both, and we can just upload it to our YouTube channels. And then I'll cut up the clips with my editor, and I'll send you my editor too if you want to cut up like some clips of you speaking to like put them on Instagram and stuff. So. Cool.
You can find me at, my last name is all my social media, Steigelman. That's spelled Steigelman. I got a bunch of music coming out. I got some songs out. Of course, that's at Steigelman as well. The brand you can find at Worthwhile Brand or worthwhilebrand.com.
Yeah. Anyways, well, this was a great podcast. I appreciate you having me, bro.
Appreciate you.
Thank
you.
This was really cool.
Of course.
So,
don't be afraid to take time for yourself. Be the best you that you can be.
Yeah. Do what you want to do and what you feel called to do, not what other people are trying to get you to do.
Facts.
So,
drop the mic.
Peace.
Welcome to the Worthwhile Spotlight. There's always something that can be learned from someone else. Our stories are written by the things we experienced growing up, and these experiences, negative and positive, shape who we are and what we stand for. The beautiful thing about your story is you decide how it's told, and the Worthwhile Spotlight is the place to tell it.